Recording, live streaming, we're all set.
All right, we'll call this special meeting of the Board of Finance to order. It is Tuesday, March 9th. It is 7:03 p.m. I would ask that if anyone is not talking to please mute your phone. And I will do a roll call of the Board of Finance members. Myself, Tim O'Brien, and Glenn Frischman are in attendance here at the Stonington Police Department. Mike Farbach, are you on?
I'm here, thanks.
Lynn Young?
Here.
Bob Stachin?
Present.
Jim Norman?
Here.
Dave Motherwhite?
I'll be walking through the door in about 30 seconds.
Dave Motherway is on his way in. In addition, we have Jim Sullivan and Jill Senior on the line. All right, we'll go. Perfect, thank you, Jill. I will remind everyone to please identify yourself as you're speaking so that Jill can take minutes easier and transcribe them. And I'll also remind everyone, if you're not talking, to please mute your phone or device that you're listening and talking through so that we don't get feedback and can hear everyone clear and precisely.
That's pretty quick stuff, thank you. Pretty quick stuff.
All right, first item on the agenda is new business is budget presentations, and Board of Ed with SIP is the first item on the agenda. I will turn it over to, we have in attendance here, we have board members Jack Morehouse and Gordon Lord, and also Superintendent of Schools Dr. Van Riley here in attendance, as well as Danielle Cheeseborough, First Selectman of Stonington. So I will turn it over to you guys. I don't know who's going in what order.
I'll start.
Okay. Now,
back here, or?
What we found is this mic is great, but it's better if you come up closer to it, especially if you're Danielle.
Sit over here.
Just grab a chair.
Just grab that.
Yeah.
You guys okay with the mask down?
Absolutely, yeah. We're separated by CDC guidelines, so.
Perfect.
Yeah, we want to be able to hear you, so.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, Gordon Lord, I'm the newest member of the Board of Education. This is my first time on this side of the table. What we're going to do tonight is I'm going to read a letter from our chairman, Frank Tedesco, who's out of town in Atlanta on business, so he sends his regrets. But I think we have a strong team to present on the behalf of the Board of Education as well as the administration.
Let me interrupt you for 1 sec, Gordon. I'd like to remind everyone who's listening or online that if you are listening to this and not muted, please mute yourself because we're getting some feedback. You got it?
Already muted, everybody.
Great, thank you. All right, go ahead.
So I will start off with the letter written by Frank, and then my colleague Jack Morehouse is going to speak about some of the things that we have going on in town regarding the district. And then Dr. Riley and his entire cabinet is available to answer any direct questions. Dear Chairman O'Brien and members of the Stonington Board of Finance, the Board of Education is proud to present our 2021-2022 fiscal budget that represents a responsible spending package for taxpayers as well as a blueprint for necessary educational programs and services for all students. The final budget approved by the Board of Education carries a 2.5 increase over the current spending plan. There are three areas that are driving 95% of the $934,495 increase over the 2020-2021 spending plan. Bullet number one, salary increase per contract, increase of $470,000, representing 50% of the requested increase. Two, health benefits, increase of $155,000, representing 17% of the requested increase. Three, outside tuition, increase of $260,000, representing 28% of the requested increase. In addition, there are staffing reductions totaling over $500,000, including certified para and other classified reductions factored into the final budget approved by the Board of Education. The Board of Education, in collaboration with the administration, undertook a very intentional approach to analyzing all requested increases. We were mindful of the potential impacts of COVID-19 could have on our local, state, and national economy, our students, staff, and facilities. Please note that the backup detail will lack specificity around staff teacher reductions due to pending potential retirements. We respectfully ask that you allow our budget as presented to go to referendum and allow the community to make a decision. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Frank Tedesco, Heidi Simmons, Gordon Lord, Craig Esposito, Elisa Morrison, Farouk Rajab, and Jack Morehouse. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Jack Morehouse.
Want me to come up here?
You can try from there, Jack, if you want, because the guys are not bashful about saying they can't hear you. So.
Great. Thank you, by the way, for. First, want to say, as a taxpayer, I appreciate the time and effort that you folks put into reviewing all the budgets, not just the Board of Ed budget, to ensure that the taxpayer money is wisely spent. At our recent Board of Ed retreat, my colleagues and I discussed the importance of making more of an effort to share with you, and by extension the community, our achievements as a school district. Bob Stashin, if you're out there, a year ago, it seems like 10 years ago, I remember we were over in the central office, asked a question, and it kind of caught my ears, and it stayed with me for this entire year. And he asked, what new initiatives, and I'm paraphrasing, what new initiatives are you undertaking to make sure the school system is better? And it's a great question, and one that I think the school district should be prepared to answer on a regular basis. Because presumably, if we can continue to show positive progress and results, we will continue to receive the much-needed support that you and the community have shown us in the past, and we very much appreciate that. So, of course, you're reading the paper about the crew team and drama and all the other great programs we have, but here's a quick kind of macro-level viewpoint of some of the other things you might be interested in that you probably don't know about. And I'm going to kind of keep it within the last couple of years, which would be about halfway through my tenure as a Board of Ed member until today. So first off, this is something to be I'm very proud of this. Our district improved student outcomes as measured by the 2018 Smarter Balanced Assessment Growth and Performance Measures, and we outperformed neighboring districts in most categories, including East Lyme and Waterford. And that's the latest state assessment data prior to COVID-19. And it actually gives us an opportunity to see how we do compared to other districts in the area. We have implemented common research-based programs to ensure equity and consistency curricula at the elementary schools. Of course, if you've had elementary school students, you probably know about the Wonders program, Eureka, the math program. But we also have a program called Second Step, which was in our K-1, and it's been extended K-8, and that's to help students with their social and emotional learning. Number 3, and this one honestly directly affected my own family. Super proud that Stonington is able to offer so many advanced placement courses. College Board recognitions for excellence in advanced placement programming in both the enrollment of female students in advanced placement computer science and increased enrollment in program offerings of advanced placement courses while maintaining a strong level of performance on the advanced placement assessments. Now, of course, advanced placement courses are not for all students, but if you live in this town and you're able to take advantage of the many AP courses that are offered, when you go to college, presumably you would go to college, you, in many cases, can skip ahead to upper-level courses. In my case, with my oldest daughter, she actually was a whole semester ahead of most of her classmates at the school she attended. So presumably some of you might know Yuri Albright. His son went to BU, and as he put it, he saved $35,000 because his son finished a semester early. And I attribute that to Stonington and having these AP courses available to our students. Next, and this is something that Dr. Riley he's involved in all of these accolades and accomplishments, but this is something that he really pushed for, and I think it's made a big difference. Inspired the development of innovative middle school programming. I'm talking about the Encore classes for all students in grades 7 and 8 at the Stonington Middle School. These are classes like photography, there's like evidently a popular one called International Sport and Games and Forensic Science. The other kind of interesting thing about this, I've been on the Teaching and Learning Committee, is kind of a side effect is that teachers have an opportunity to delve into something that they might be interested in and then bring that back to the day-to-day curriculum. So it's a win-win for students and for teachers. And we're only hearing good things about it. And there's another one on the list here that I think bears mentioning, and that is prior to the reconciliation, or the consolidation, I should say, of the two middle schools, the levels of satisfaction at Mystic Middle in particular were quite low among staff and students, historically low, I should say. When the two schools consolidated, we do assessments every year, surveys, to Tim Smith, the principal there, to his credit, we are getting very high marks from teachers, all staff members, students, and parents. So everyone seems to be enjoying their experience at Stonington Middle School. So that's something to celebrate. Of course, you guys know about this. It's been discussed many times. We opened the Learning Annex at the district office location to help students transition back into the district from outplacements and to provide alternative programming to other students as appropriate. It's kind of interesting. We're very lucky in our town to have places like the Seaport, the Aquarium. A program like this takes advantage of those partnerships. I know there's a group of students that actually go over to the Seaport and learn how to build a boat, something that's near and dear to me, probably Dave. There's another group of students, kind of life skill students, that go to the aquarium, and they mix with staff. They learn about the different jobs at the aquarium with the expectation that these students may actually get a job there someday. So, you know, good things happening there. We are engaged in professional partnerships for research-based practices in teaching and learning, academic and social and emotional domains through the collaboration with Econ, Safe Futures, High Literacy, and St. Joseph University. And, you know, I'm no expert. I'm just a, you know, regular, you know, average community guy that's on the Board of Ed, but I'm pretty impressed when I look at this because it shows we have a lot of in-house talent within our staff and teachers and administrators, but they're willing to go outside the district to get help and to do what are the best practices in teaching and learning. And so that, I think, says a lot. And you guys have always funded that, so we appreciate that. Or passed the budget to fund that. Next, we've supported standards-based curriculum development and revision in all content areas, K through 12. I can't tell you how many revisions of curriculum I've looked at in my 3 years, but they're constantly updating, and it's good because it keeps it fresh, not only for the students, but it really gives the teachers kind of a guide on you know, what they should be doing, whether you're with Ms. Smith or, you know, Mrs. Jones. The kids, there's consistency. A couple of awards. We've got the Great Schools College Success Award, and that's a 2020 award. And we were rated by Niche as one of the top-rated school districts in the state. Outscored area towns, including East Lyme, in the following categories: best teachers in Connecticut, best places to teach in Connecticut, and safest school districts in Connecticut. And, you know, Niche, take it or leave it, but my feeling on this is that when people are looking to relocate and they're looking to come to this part of the state, we have a lot to offer, and so they would be inclined to come to Stonington, but they're probably going to go on a site like Niche and look up the school district if they have kids, and we have an A rating along with East Lyme that puts us above Groton, Ledyard, Montville, so it's something to be proud of. I'm very proud of that, and it's something we should celebrate in the district. One of the things we always talk about are partnerships, and we've expanded community partnerships to include the COMO, which the COMO was very, very helpful during this COVID time, allowing parents to have an alternative when their kids weren't in school, and we've worked well with them. They've been very helpful. Yellow Farmhouse, Stonington Historical Society, LaGrua Center, Stonington Housing Authority, Mystic support, as I mentioned earlier, Mystic Aquarium, New England Science and Sailing, and most recent partnership is with the University of Connecticut in Avalonia. It's regarding a reforestation project that we're doing in Hoffman Woods. From my point of view, there are many great things happening in our district. As we continue to improve, I hope that some of the money that we spend for students to attend other schools outside of our district, some of the magnet schools, will start to come back into our district. The magnet schools will always offer curriculum and classes that we don't have here, but I think over time, as we improve and we get the word out there, the Stonington Public Schools really one of the best school systems in our area, that it will encourage families to stay here and put their kids into school here. And we have these brand new buildings, declining enrollment, so we want to keep the buildings filled to a certain level, and with a good school system, that should happen. We have challenges ahead. Yes, some of them will be addressed tonight in the budget, but overall, we're moving in a positive direction. It has been said that schools are the foundation of a successful community. Strong school systems attract new people to our town, new businesses, new customers, which is good for a small business like, I'm a small business owner in town, and I appreciate that. And studies have shown that the property values remain more stable during economic downturns in towns that have a good, strong school system. I hope together as a community we can continue to promote and support our school system, and by extension, support our community. Thank you for your past support, and I ask you for your future support.
Thank you, Jeff. Dr. Riley, you're up.
Good evening. Mr. Brown, I think in the past we've usually gone through the CIP first and then gone through the regular budget. We've also had, over the past few years.
It's a little hard to hear, Dr. Riley. Any chance you can move forward?
Okay, sure, yep. You mind moving forward, Dr. Riley?
All right.
Danielle, do you want to move back?
There's an office chair right over there, Van. You can roll.
No, but then we can give him the table that's there, so he gets the whole table to spread out. So that's easier. And just so board members know, I'll give Dr. Riley an immense amount of credit. He got his second shot for his COVID vaccine today, and is still here and working very hard for the school district. So I think he deserves a kudos for that, because that's, from what I've seen from others, not an easy thing to do, so.
Second shot.
Thank you.
What we usually do is go through the CIP budget first and then go through the regular budget. In the past, we've done two things. We've gone through line by line with an explanation, and in more recent years, we've simply asked the Board of Finance which questions, what you'd like us to answer related to those. So I would, I don't know if we need to go through line by line. We've put explanations, we've put backup material. So I would suggest that if you wanted to start with the CIP, and then see if Board of Finance members have any questions about those.
Do members want to start with the SIP, or would you rather?
I do have a question.
I think the operating, Dr. Riley, I think we might be able to do the operating pretty quickly.
Sure.
If you don't mind starting with that, and then we can get through that, and then we'll go to the SIP where we might have more questions.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, line 117, which is titled Paraprofessionals and Behavioral Tech Salaries. And I remember when we were talking about the creation of a learning center at what was formerly the Parkwood Middle School, the intent was to make that revenue neutral and bring back to the district perhaps some students who were previously tuition students elsewhere that we were paying for. Can I have an update? How are we doing?
I don't have the specific number, but there are 6 or 7 students in that program today. All of those students would be either outplaced or we brought them back. And that can range, you never really know until you're actually out there. But as you know, that could be $30,000 up to $100,000 per person.
Or more.
Or more. So we do have a full-time teacher, and then we have some part-time staff, some mental health staff, physical education staff, para, health, in there, but if you think about what it could be well over $500,000 if those students were outplaced. And so we're very much to the good financially with that program.
Well, I saw the rather significant increase, and that's what prompted the question. I knew that we had initially staffed that with special ed faculty.
Well, both the paras and the behavior, that's the district-wide. And we have different needs these days than we've had in the past. Behavior technicians are new, not only to our district, but to many districts. And they deal with students who have serious behavior outbreaks. It's not just the ones that are in the annex, it's at all the schools. And so we've hired several behavior DCBAs, they're called, and they have the credential to help come up with a behavior plan. It might be a kindergartner at one school or an 8th grader at one school, and they work with the teachers to.
So this is a new occupational specialty for the district.
It is. In the past, we haven't had that, but it's not only here, it's nationwide, having behavior specialists. That's the BCBA part of it. The paras it's the same kind of thing. There's more needs, there's more one-on-one needs, there's more monitoring of certain areas. We have like a lunch monitor, we have a suspension center monitor that's listed on here at the middle school, where you had, instead of suspending a student and sending him home, we put him in this classroom for the day or for an hour, whatever it takes. And then the student isn't just home doing whatever they do at home. So we have much more control over that student, that they can get back into their regular classroom sooner. So
this prevents a disruptive behavior deterring the rest of the class.
that's certainly one aspect of both of those paras and the behavior techs, yes.
Other questions from board members on just the operating budget at this point?
Sure, thanks. Yeah,
Maybe I can just build off, I'm sorry, it's Mike, just building off the current theme with the learning annex and special education. So if we drop down to line 560, tuition, tuition expenses are up, quite a bit, and it looks like the biggest driver of that is special education tuition up 326,000, according to the note. I was just trying to understand a little bit better, with the creation of the learning annex, if I'm understanding this correctly, it sounds like we're still spending, quite a bit to send folks external to our annex. And as a matter of fact, it looks like it's gone up 326K. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes, instead of 300,000, if we didn't have the annex, that could be well over 500,000, 600,000, 700,000. We're offsetting those costs with having the annex. There's another issue with that line item. Actually, there's two things. We could have a student that lives in Colorado that's a residential placement student at $150,000 a year. Their parents move to Stonington. That cost comes to Stonington. We have zero legal way to challenge that. And that happens on and off. They come in, they go out. That's a very, very difficult line to deal with. But that's just something that both the Board of Ed, I think, and the Board of Finance need to realize that there could be, we had 2 or 3 students move in with these very, very high costs that we have no control over that. That's one aspect. The other one is those students that we do have outplaced, because even our annex program isn't appropriate for them, those outplaced facilities can raise their fees without any control, any suggestion by us or the legislature. And we, Allison Van Etten, our Director of Special Services, is in touch with Heather Summers and others about maybe coming up with some kind of protocols or help with the increases. They can say, well, everybody else is getting 2%, but we need 15%. And we would have to pay that if we have a student in that particular program. So we're working with that along with other districts, but those are 2 big reasons that could go up.
Right. So are there individuals that are sent out that potentially could be in the annex, or are these simply individuals that have special needs that can't be addressed within the annex.
The second, they're individuals that the annex needs cannot be met. If they can, they're in the annex. That's our first line is the annex.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. O'Brien, Gary Shettle, can I just, when Michael just mentioned the increase of 326,000 for special ed, that's down to $244,000. The $81,900 that was reduced does not reflect that. So it's really just over $244,000 for special ed increase. So it's close to $82,000 less. I just wanted to make that point. That was my mistake.
Is the excess,
Gary, is that gonna carry through to the bottom line? Is that one of those?
It's already reflected in the bottom line.
So that 2.5% that we're looking at, that's already reflected in that. It's just the number there is off.
Yes.
The annotation. Okay. I just want to be clear about that. Okay.
Yeah.
is the excess cost grant still based, you have to exceed, it's 4 times the cost per student in order to get 20%, 80%?
I'll have to ask Gary, is the excess cost still the same?
It's 4.5 times the per pupil.
Excuse me.
I think it went up a little bit.
Yeah.
And just by the way, online tonight is the cabinet, Allison Bennett and Mary Ann Butler, Gary Shettle, Chris Williston, and Peter Anderson.
Other questions from members on the operating budget?
I just have one question. It's Lynn. How did you get the health insurance costs down so much from your original budget?
The Brown and Brown, Gary's in touch with Brown and Brown, I would say weekly, if not more often, and things change throughout the year. This is based on our experience this year, and each month or so, it's gone down quite a bit. And this is down to the point now where we could reduce it to this amount and still stay within the MOU.
Right. We used, when we looked at our percentage of the health reserve account, we were able to reduce the line item because we're still at around 30% of excess costs in there. And so we were probably around 37% before we did that. So in line with the MOU, we're down to about 30% in reserves.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, it's Mike again. Just building off that. I mean, I had a similar question. I was just surprised at how much it changed with each iteration. I mean, this is now $1 million less than the original budget. It looked like in the first, the second iteration, it came down by 630,000, and then in the current iteration, it came down another, 370,000. So, was it a miscalculation in the first round, or I'm just surprised that suddenly $1 million was available.
To a couple of things. The first iteration was based on information up to October 2020. So it was so preliminary information there. In the second round, we updated that in January and then took some of the health reserve account. And then finally, when we took one more look at the health reserve account and a final iteration in February, didn't change that much between January and February as far as our health consultants. But as I said, we were able to use more of the health benefit reserve account and yet still be within the MOU guidelines. So the combination of looking very early in October, which really, you just take a quick glance at it, Michael, and then updating it in January and February, and with reducing the health reserve account, all three of those factors amounted for that. I don't expect very much difference between now and July 1st.
All right, so you're pretty confident in the numbers we're working with now?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Riley or Mr. Shettle, either one, a 29% increase on professional technical services. That's $132,000.
Which line are you looking
This
at?
is
Mr.
line number 319. Seems
Sure, that was the greatest amount of that, and which makes up over more than half of that, and Chris can talk to that as well as I can, is what we did was we took the copier rentals and leases from operations and we put them under technology services. And so that accounts for about $65,000 to $70,000 of that line item. That's where I know more than half of that came from. Probably Peter and Chris can talk to the other things with MCOR and things of that sort, but more than half of it just came from a line item switch with that. If you were to look at the line item that says 440, you'll see a decrease of $67,000. So you'll see the offsets there.
So about half. So but there's a 15% increase. Tell me about that 15% remaining.
I would defer to Chris and Peter on that one.
Okay.
So I can't speak to MCOR. I'll let Peter address that. However, the phone system support contract, those are being offset. So again, out of the rentals, all of the copiers, printer and lease payment, those are being transferred over to that account. There was some additional software purchases with the rollout of Parent Square, our district communication platform. We rolled that out district-wide. That is also including a installation of a man trap at SMS. Again, I'll let Peter expand upon that if he chooses to. The Stormwind Learning is technical education services for the IT department for professional growth. And the Carbon Black endpoint security is essentially endpoint antivirus upgrades for the district.
I can talk about the MCOR contract was slightly increased due to the remainder of West Vine coming online and getting that all set with the service contract with them, and also the ABS or our Allerton system, which is our control system. That is a new contract that we have with ABS that they monitor our controls. They control our alarms for the boiler systems for 3 of the 4 schools that we have up. Also, in regards to the man trap at MS, that's a project that we've been trying to get so that we're going to increase the security by not allowing people to, once they're in through the first door, they can then just walk into the hallway. They'll be stopped and then buzzed after they've been vetted.
So that's a secure vestibule you're talking about. That's what you call a man.
That's correct, yes.
Other questions from board members?
Hi, this is Bob Stachin. I just have a question. I'm looking at the revised narrative for the budget, revised February 25th, which I assume is 2021. And sort of the structure, and this somewhat goes back to Mike Fauerbach's question as far as the reductions from January to February, the 8.9 to 4.8 to 2.5. And I believe that my understanding then is that a lot of it, the first reduction has to do with that CARES Act funding and shifting to that CARES Act, that 800,000, those 3 line items there going. And that was one of the major reductions, being able to do that. And again, we're just ensuring that the monies that are going there are not recurring costs. At this point, those are outside the budget. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We pulled those out of the future budget.
Okay. And so, and that's, how is that part of this, so that's not part of this operating budget for this year. That is a separate accounting number? Like where's the CARES Act 2 in regards to the operating budget?
The CARES Act 2 has not finalized yet. We're working on that, but all of those items, the summer school, the additional math specialist items that were in this budget for next year. Anything like that that was related to COVID and recovery, those were pulled out of this budget. So I think that answers your question, right? That you're looking at, are there things in this budget that could be paid for, should be paid for out of the CARES 2 money? And we have pulled all those out, and that was the large reduction of that first.
And that's you know, that seems appropriate, assuming those, none of those costs in there are going to be recurring costs. And I know you talked about extending those for 2 years, that those funds could be extended, the CARES Act funds could be extended for 2 years. How confident are we as far as those funds coming in?
We're very confident. We are just awaiting the CARES 2 funds.
Yep.
We're waiting to receive. Basically, they're not in the bank yet, but they're here. They've been approved, and we'll be using those to offset again all those items for next year: summer school, extra math teachers, other things we need to do to help students basically catch up or recover both the academic and the social-emotional losses that they've had this year due to the pandemic. So, and we do have 2 years to spend those funds. So we're looking at, in fact, we'll be presenting to the Board of Education in April, basically a 2-year plan on how best to spend those funds to bring students back up. Part of this
do we anticipate another round of funding?
We do, based on the 1.9 trillion. They'll probably call it CARES 3. So that is going to be substantial on top of the $1.1 billion, 1.15, I believe, that the district will receive out of the CARES 2 funds.
Dr. Riley, just because it's such an important issue as far as the students, I have a child in the high school, and I know that all the parents are concerned as far as kids kind of falling behind because of this year. And could you talk just a bit about the structure of that summer school program, as well as the new programs under this CARES Act money, and how that's just provide a little more substance to that as far as what those programs are going to entail to help the students who've been impacted by this?
I can tell you what we've been talking about. We have 15 of our top educators and mental health staff working on those 2 issues: academic recovery and support, and then social mental health. We haven't finalized. I don't want to get out in front of the Board of Ed tonight on this. We'll be talking a little bit about it Thursday night, but coming up with a final plan. But we will absolutely be offering additional. In the past, summer school's been just for a few students. We will be expanding summer school to probably all students that wish to take it. We're looking at either 5 or 6 week programs. That's just in the summer. Then next year, we're looking at areas in language arts and math in particular, having extra help, extra interventionists, which is basically teachers that are specialists in mathematics at all levels to help bring students back, to help catch them up to where we think they should be. And again, we'll have that to the Board of Ed at their second week in April at their meeting. But those are the 2 big functions. And in the following summer, I mean, this is something we're going to do summer school and solve all the issues. We're looking at 2 years with the CARES 2 money, and then once we know what the CARES 3 money is going to be, we'll expand that. But it's really, it's also the social mental health issue. Students have been home. A lot of them are full distance learning, and coming back to a school environment, they'll need some extra support. So that money will be used for that too. And again, all those things.
I agree with that, Doc. I'm sorry, please continue.
I just, for the people that are in the room, I want to explain to you, there's about a 2-second delay from what they hear and what they say to what we say. So we're managing that as best we can. Okay. So
I apologize, Dr. Wright.
All of our understanding of the delays we have between the 2. So Dr. Riley, if you wanted to finish.
Well, I was also going to say, Bob, I think you also had a question about February 25th, that spreadsheet that lists another $864,000 in reductions. Those are para positions that were due to COVID that were in this budget. The health benefit reserve we talked about, and the certificated vacancies, we have $385,000. And the reason that we don't have the detail on that is that we haven't brought to the Board of Ed recommendations and talked with them about specifically which positions those are. But we do have 3 unfilled positions right now and 3 potential confirmed retirements or resignations at the end of this year. So we have enough just in attrition to cover that amount. That's why that amount's there. Whether it's those exact individuals or not will be determined after the referendum, quite frankly.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. And then my final question would be, do you feel, just looking at those numbers, they seem fairly specific numbers, so I assume there's a budget being put forward, but do you think those amounts are going to be sufficient to overcome the issues that the pandemic has presented? Or do you think that they would not be sufficient?
So maybe Dr. Riley, might I offer this? I think we have an opportunity here, and when we have opportunities, I enjoy opportunities. I think we have members Morehouse and Lord from the Board of Education, and I would defer to you that, to your statement exactly was maybe the Board of Education ought to hear these first, but our liaison to the Board of Education would actually, probably we would all benefit from a degree of cooperation and cohesion together to, after they get their presentation, to sit with either the finance member or someone and then feed it back to us almost not real time, but after the Board of Education has done their due diligence on it and evaluated it back through the Board of Finance, so that we're read in as things are transpiring to a degree. Obviously, we want to let the Board of Education hear it first, but then that'll be that constant dialogue that maybe would help the community as a whole, and that could benefit us all, that we could really then see it kind of in real time and provide inputs and give and takes that would benefit us all. So might I suggest that might solve all?
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful idea. Yep.
Again, Dr. Riley, I would just say, I think it's a big issue, and I hope you see us as a partner working with you to get our students back on track. Because I think that we don't recognize a lot of the issues that even this has presented yet. So again, I hope you see us as a partner to help all of our students get back on track. Thank you.
Tim, it's Mike.
Other question? Go ahead, Mike.
Yep. Just going back to the CARES 2 funding, more a question actually probably for Jim Sullivan than Dr. Riley's. I mean, I like the fact that this was pulled out. It makes sense to me, but I would appreciate better understanding how we're handling this in terms of the budget build. So in other words, and again, the question is probably more for Jim. Jim, are you then kind of like bottom line adding an additional $800K in expense and then offsetting that with assumed revenue from the state of 1.15 million, which actually will net us 350, because there's, potentially it doesn't look like the full 1.15 million has been allocated yet. So I'm just trying to understand the logistics of the budget here.
Well, Mike, to answer your question, I have no idea how those numbers relate to one another. I haven't been involved in this at all.
All right. Well, I mean,
they really don't. The 1.15 has not been allocated. We had put in the budget originally an amount for summer school and an amount for math and inclusion teachers with a very general estimate, and that's what we just pulled that out. We don't have specifics on that yet, so that none of that is in there. And this 864 is not part of that. We might need some more paras or vacant, certificated, but that'll be totally separate from this. This was to pull the budget presented to the Board of Finance down to a level that the Board of Ed was comfortable with, the 2.5%.
But
Could I just offer something? It's Mary Ann Butler. I just want for
Okay.
a clarification, because I know if you're not involved to the extent we are with these CARES funds, it's very confusing. But we literally just got the application open to us. I think it was, if it wasn't at the beginning of this week, it was last week. And so that's an application process. It looks like it's a process very similar to a grant process. So that is something we're literally working on over the next month to get into the State Department. And even though those allocations have been made, we won't have those funds until after that application and explanation of how those funds are going to be expended is delivered to the State Department of Ed.
Yeah, maybe it's something we handle offline, but it just seemed to me like we have to account for this projected revenue, and we have to account for these, what look like to be very real expenses. It sounds like summer school is going to happen, so I just worry a little bit about saying it's off to the side without knowing how we're accounting for it.
We account for it as a grant account, just like we account for it for the IDEA grant, which is Individuals Disabilities Education Act, just like we account for it for Title I, Title II, and Title IV. These are all grants which flow through the State Department of Education.
All right, so in my, an example, or the real example we have here, you guys are expecting 1.15 million. You've allocated roughly 800K. There's a $350,000 surplus. Where does that land?
That will be part of our academic recovery plan. In other words, we're working on that right now to figure out what we need. Our winter assessment data just came in, and so we have to have some conversations about what that's going to look like.
But it would be your intention to spend that additional $350,000.
Correct.
Okay. I'll stay in touch with Chairman Tedisco.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean that helps a little bit, but again, yeah, maybe we could talk a little further on offline. But yeah, I just want to make sure we understand where all the pieces are flowing.
We do welcome the opportunity to meet with the Board of Finance and keep updating you on all these things, because
there's a lot of motion happening right now.
Many moving parts.
So just being sure we're clear about what's moving where, how, to make sure there's no drops between us both, that everyone is supported correctly. So other questions from Board of Finance members?
So the one question I have around this CARE funding, it sounds to me like it's one-time funding. Is that correct?
The CARES 2 is one time you can spend over 2 years. The new funding that will be apparently approved at the federal level on Wednesday, the 1.9 trillion, we don't know if that'll be one time and probably be able to spend over maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years. We don't know that yet, but it does come in at one time. But we do have a way to spend it over some years, which is really good, because you're not going to, like I said, you're not going to have everybody go to summer school 24 hours a day for 6 weeks and solve this. We need a variety of strategies to help students recover the losses academically and emotionally.
And the only thing I would urge the Board of Education and yourself and the Cabinet to consider is, if we're going to set funding aside and put programs in place for a couple of years, to make sure that we communicate that they are for a couple of years. Because I wouldn't want to be in a position where we're spending $1 million that's not accounted for in the budget and setting the expectation. So 3 years from now, you're coming looking for another $1 million that isn't accounted for in the budget. Just be cautious of that so that we don't run into issues proactively.
Personal experience is that these monies generally have to be accounted for pretty diligently from the federal government, and how they're, so that you're not just buying things that don't have anything to do with anything. So I would expect that we'll be seeing those kind of numbers from the Board of Education, of this is what we are doing, this is the monies that we've received, and the ins and outs of that, such that then we're sure, well, that weans off, we're not still in need of something that comes at an 11th hour that we need to.
That's my concern,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So that, I think that's the expectation we would all have. That's the collaborative thing that I think really is important right now, because it's federal dollars that aren't our taxpayers' dollars, but they aren't.
They are.
They are at the end of the day. But that we need to kind of make sure accounting-wise, we're all on the same page and clear about what may or may not be happening going forward, so. All right, other questions from Board of Finance members on the operating budget?
Yeah, if I could, this is Bob Stachin again. First, I'd like to thank Jack Morehouse for his shout out at the beginning and preempting my question with his thorough recitation of what is some good news. And again, we appreciate hearing that. I might throw out a suggestion that all those accomplishments would be included in a section of the narrative at the beginning of the budget for people who aren't able to view this and who just pull up the budget and look at it. I think, Jack, you gave a lot of really good information, and that might be something as people are kind of thinking the direction we're going. I'll also get, because I did look to the original January draft of the budget and look into page 4 of that, and there's a section looking to the future, and there's 2 sentences in it, and to be honest, it was a little disappointing to see that in some respects, just kind of the way I look at always trying to continual improvement in ways we could do that. I also think that this is an incredibly difficult year, and right now we're all, I think we are all rowing in the same direction. We got to get back to where we started, so it is more difficult. But I would also just say that, you know, a section like that looking to the future, you know, I would like to see more thought, kind of what are we actually thinking of, and what sort of initiatives are out there. Again, I know these are difficult times, but sometimes difficult times are the times that can be most entrepreneurial, shall we say. But I do I appreciate the recitation, but just would ask maybe if those could all be included somewhere so that the public can see. Thank you.
I guess just one comment on that, just a little closer.
Yep.
So, hey Bob, it's Gordon Lord. One of the things that we've actually talked about has been the need to promote all the good things that we have going on in the district. And, you know, it's funny, I've sat down with Marion Butler 3 or 4 times, coffee, and there were a lot of things that have been talked about, and I said, oh, I didn't know that, right? So when we look at people that want to come to this town, we want people to be able to go to a site and Google that and Google things like diversity or awards and things like that, and know that we have all these things. I would say that's a big do differently for us. And I can tell you that's a big part of the board goals for the administration moving forward is let's be louder and prouder about what we're doing really well, because we do a lot of things well. And honestly, I was taking a lot of the notes down that Jack wrote, even some of those things that I didn't know. So totally agree with you, Bob. That's something we have to do a better job of, and we're committed to.
Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate it.
Other questions from board members? Nope. All right, hearing none, we will move on to the SIP lines. Dr. Riley, do you want to lead us through these? Do you want Peter to? How do you want to handle this?
I thought we could do either one. Peter would be the one to do that, or we could take questions, either way.
Do members want to go line by line with questions? Would that maybe be the best?
That's fine. If Peter is he's your manager for capital.
Yep.
Peter and Chris.
And Chris Williston.
Tech items.
Yeah, probably the first ones are Chris Williston. Do you want to just step us through the first couple line items there?
Sorry, Tim, it's Mike. Just before, there are multiple versions again. Maybe just so we're all working off the same. It should be working off the Excel spreadsheet that Jim sent this afternoon, or what's in the book, or what are you guys working off with in the room?
We were 1. check one.
Peter, I forwarded that, the spreadsheet that you sent me this, today. So do we want to work off that one or?
For Chris and I, that's probably going to be the easiest one to work off of.
Okay, I'm not sure I have that one in front of me, but I only have a couple to go through, so I can start off with the security systems and cameras. Is that what you have as the first line?
Yeah,
Okay.
hang on one, Chris, hang on 1 second. Let me make sure that we're all working off the same version. So, Peter, do you know how that spreadsheet differs from the latest paper version we were delivered?
I wouldn't think it would be any different than what you were given.
If I may, this is Jim Sullivan. The spreadsheet that Peter sent you this today versus the schedule in the budget that I handed out, the numbers are all the same, just the order is a bit different.
Okay, so we can figure that out internally. That's not a big problem, as long as the numbers are the same. Glenn, you good with that?
I'm good.
Okay, Chris, go ahead and yeah, give us the title and the rough line, and then we'll make sure they match up with what we've got.
Hey, Tim, it's Lynn.
Go ahead,
Jim
Lynn.
Sullivan, I don't have that spreadsheet in my inbox. Can you send it to me?
Pardon?
I don't have whatever Peter sent in my inbox. Can you send it to me?
It came from me, Lynn.
Okay, oh, it's that one? Okay. Got it.
Yeah. All right, Chris, I think we're ready for you now.
So the security systems and cameras upgrades for the district, this was part of the request from last year's SIP. We had $218,000 cut from last year's SIP. So there are some increases in this year's over the projected from last year. This security cameras are for district office, as well as additional cameras at the other schools to cover some blind spots that we have with our existing infrastructure. The $75,000 requested, there is currently $24,000 existing in an old computer SIP account for the camera installation. So with that offset, if the board approved that money be used for this project, it is $51,000 in newly requested funds total. So again, the $24,000 is already existing in a previous security camera SIP account. So with that offset, it's $51,000 of new funding requested.
You're talking about line 132 in the book?
Yes, line 132. Yep.
I didn't look at that. I checked.
Okay, there was an email. I'll make sure you get the email. The email is line 1, and the book is 132.
So, just so I understand, should this line now be 50 or
51.
51 versus 75?
So Chris, you're saying we should drop the 75 to 51 in our books?
Yeah, if the board approves use of the previous funds for this. Yep.
Should we have to do it at the meeting, right?
Jim, is that a line? Jim, are you going to know that line from a previous budget is not expended, or do we need to know to clarify that better?
Well, I'm not sure what Chris is asking. If the money is in that line, the same line, the same account for a prior year, they don't need your approval to spend that. If he's asking to move it from another line item, then it would need to go to Board of Finance for a line item transfer.
No, that is the same account. So
Then
it's only
okay.
then being requested.
Then you don't need to ask for it. All you need to do is ask for the 51,000 that you need going forward.
Yeah, so Chris, we can just drop that 75 down to 51. We don't have to do anything else because you've already got the 24 in that same account line, so you're good.
Correct. Perfect.
Okay. Any questions by members? Nope.
Large, on line 130, just to confuse one.
Well, hang on, he's gonna keep going through. He's gonna keep going through. We're going to go line by line through it. All right, Chris, go ahead to the next one.
Next, you have phone systems, which was reduced to $1.
Yep.
And that was reduced because of the board's approval of the Avaya Cloud Office contract, which we've implemented.
And that matches what we have, Glenn, in line 131 in our book.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's already $1. Okay, Chris, go ahead with next.
Chromebook 1-to-1. Is that what you have for your next line?
Yeah, I see that for you. Yep, that's going to be line 130, Glenn.
got it.
So that's being requested for 650 Chromebooks for Stonington High School. As a reminder, we are now 1-to-1 with Chromebooks in grades 6 through 12. The elementaries are still classroom assigned Chromebooks. But again, we're populating out those classrooms to essentially provide 1-to-1, although it's building assigned, not student assigned. We did have the board approve last week the bid waiver for the licenses. So of the quote you see included in the support, $16,250 has already been paid for from this year's Chromebook purchase. However, that's that many less Chromebooks we can purchase this year. So that's what those funds will be used to offset, is to finish this year's Chromebook purchases. This year was funded $72,000 for purchases.
And Chris, this is David Motherway. Thank you for taking the time today and taking our questions. Thrilled about the savings on the Chromebook licenses. If you'll recall, last year during this process, and when we talked about the Chromebook licenses, I asked for visibility to the FIFO inventory that you have for all of these 1-to-1s, so I can just understand, you know, is it damage? Is it just that they're 4 years old? Are they walking out the door? And just have a sense of what that looks like. And because we got a 195, 165, 165, 165, you just want to get a sense of, you know, what's it look like? And I'd very much like to see that detail when you have the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send that over. I can speak to that on just a high level now. Essentially, what we're doing is we have 4 schools. After 4 years, the license is only valid for 5 years. They're part of what Google calls the auto update expiry list, where they will stop releasing security patches for these devices. Many school districts use 3 years as the anticipated life of the Chromebook. However, we've started implementing some education for the students on proper care of these devices to help extend the life. In the fall, we're going to be offering a Chromebook insurance policy for the district as well to help self-insure some of these and reduce our repair costs. So essentially what you see in that budget projected out are a staggered upgrade. So every year, one school has its Chromebooks upgraded and we start over after 4 years. With the 5th year, as we call it, those Chromebooks become the spares and loaners and one-offs for the district. We have substitutes and paraprofessionals and sometimes teaching. Right now, some of our teachers are using a dedicated Chromebook in the classroom just for live streaming for our hybrid students. So all of those unanticipated uses, those are what we use the, you know, salvageable, if you will, Chromebooks for. And the rest of those repairs come out of the repair inventory. When we do these upgrades, we do a little bit of padding to purchase extra devices to hold out for the year. And moving forward, and once those are depleted, we use that out of the operating expenses repairs fund.
Yep, that's exactly the detail I'd like to see, Chris. The padding is the specific information. I'd like it down to the detail.
Absolutely, yep. I can share that well, Lee.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board members?
It's Mike. Can you just comment on the pricing for the Chromebooks? I mean, it looks like, you know, we're kind of assuming steady pricing here, you know, if you look at these projections, but you know, any chance that we'll be able to drive this down a little bit over time? Just as technology costs hopefully go down.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, anyone who's been tracking the supply chain with Chromebooks this year knows there's been a lot of price gouging. It's been very tumultuous in terms of trying to get devices delivered, period. So the Chromebooks on average are around $250. We've seen upticks in price. These all go out to bid anyways, so it's always a competitive bid process to get the best dollar value that we can out of these. So it is certainly possible that overall these do come down in price. These are also not the cheapest. I mean, if you go to Best Buy, you may find a $200 Chromebook. These are what's called Education Edition. So they are slightly ruggedized Chromebooks to help reduce wear and tear. They're a little more resilient to students handling them, especially those one-to-one devices that go home with the students. All of that travel that's built in, there's obviously an increase in repairs due to that.
So what are you assuming for per unit price on the 195,000?
On the 195,000, the quote we received, I believe, was 280. I want to say. Let me see. $259 is the quote we received, and that's pretty on par with the quote I received a few weeks ago. It was $256, so it was a $3 difference in the Chromebook price. So it hasn't changed a lot. The main issue this year has been inventory supplies.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Other questions?
The line 128.
Well, we're going line by line. Hang on. All right, Chris, we're on to the computer systems infrastructure. It's going to be 128.
So the computer systems infrastructure, I'll just kind of itemize out exactly what we're looking at here. We have the Stonington Middle School wireless access points are needed to be upgraded this year. Those are end of life support next year. So we will no longer have vendor support for all of those devices. That is what provides wireless access throughout the building. There's 50 of those access points to be deployed. Stonington High School has new switches slated for upgrade. There's 25 new switches to be deployed throughout the building. That's what connects all of the wired infrastructure. This Stonington High School is also the main distribution frame for our district. We have a hub and spoke network. So the server rack data center, all of the core equipment for the district runs out of that data center off of a UPS or uninterruptible power supply. This is a 3-phase power supply, which is about a $22,000 upgrade to get that device upgraded itself. The second half of the servers, we did the first half this year out of SIP. This is to replace the remaining half of the servers. The virtual desktop clients, those are our computer labs. So that is all of the virtual desktop infrastructure and endpoints that we have. I will point out that of the networking equipment for the switches and the wireless access points, this is just an estimate right now. Again, the numbers vary. We currently have bids out right now for next year because of the federal E-rate process. You have to have these bids posted and a vendor selected. It's always contingent via non-obligation clause on funding from the town, but we are anticipating approximately $100,000 in E-rate reimbursement for our two expenses. And again, that is for the wireless access points and the switches. And that's the Wally Computer Associates quote you can see there that has the networking equipment itemized. You'll also note if you add up those quotes, it's $472,862. Again, that is because we anticipate those costs to come down once it goes to competitive bid.
Chris, it's Mike. Sorry, one more question for you. So I appreciate the additional detail. It's helpful. I guess there's just a lot that goes into this line. It's a big number. And I guess what would be helpful is, I'm sure all the items you just mentioned, some of those really are critical priorities, and others are, great if we can fit it this year, but probably not a big deal. If it happens next year. I mean, is there any way to get also prioritization within this line? It's such a big number. So many things.
Sorry, Mike, you were breaking up a little bit at the end. Are you requesting additional detail or breaking this out into separate lines?
Well, yeah, I was asking if could we get it as essentially separate lines with prioritization? Yeah, you know.
With prioritization?
Yeah, I think, Chris, what Mike is saying is that there's a lot of different components that are going into this one big line, so it becomes hard to discern all the aspects that are going into it because there's so much detail to it. So if there's a way we could break it out into components or you know, groupings or something that made sense to you, that might help break it into a smaller number that we can understand and you know, get our arms around a little better.
Certainly. Well, I can say this right off the bat. The access point switches, power supply and servers, those are all core infrastructure. Those are mission critical upgrades. The computer labs, while important, those are coming up on year 8. This is year 7 that those labs have been deployed. That would be, if there was one, a second tier, I guess, of priority.
Maybe if
that was for...
Yeah, if you could shoot me an email that I can share with the other board members about, you know, groupings that would be critical, first tier, second tier, third tier, that would help.
Absolutely, I can share that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Chairman, this is Jim Sullivan, if I may. Just something.
Jim, hang on 1 second. Jim, hang on 1 second. We would like to thank Dr. Riley for being here. His COVID shot is affecting him, and we'll thank him for everything. And should anything else come up, we'll be in touch with you.
You have a wonderful group of people.
We know we've got your support staff here, so thank you for everything you've done here, Dr. Riley.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening, Dr.
Take care.
Jim, go ahead.
Okay, I just think it's important for the board to note at this point, if you're looking at the spreadsheet that was sent to you from Peter via Tim, the total is $4,266,000. On the budget that you have in front of you that I prepared, if you note on line 171, we have a $100,000 offset. That will be that's an offset to that $400,000 in technology spend, which will be an E-rate grant. Now, Chris, is that correct? Can you verify that for me?
That is correct. Those funds are allocated. So the district, we get 5 years to spend our funds. It's a 50% match. So on the networking infrastructure, there's very specific guidelines on what qualifies for an E-rate eligible category 2 piece of equipment. However, anything that does qualify, those are guaranteed funds. The only time we've seen a rejection is a licensing discrepancy or something along those lines. And usually it's a very small difference in requested funds. Again, we get that funding commitment decision letter typically in the summer. So these items are actually live out for bid right now, pending approval for funds. And that's part of the process that all school districts and public libraries go through with the federal E-rate program with the FCC.
Okay, any other questions from board members? No? All right. Chris, do you want to go to number 5, the staff computers?
Yeah, so we have staff computers. The district office is up for upgrades this year. Again, this is, you'll see a spike in the forecasting for this line. And that is because, the board will recall, we ended up with a 0% 4-year financing agreement with Apple, around $50,000 per year for the purchase of all the staff laptops. So if that opportunity presents itself again, we could certainly take advantage of that. When it comes time to year 5, do the refresh for those staff laptops. However, there's no guarantee Apple's going to offer the same option. So you'll see a uptick there. This year, it is just the $20,000 to upgrade all of the district office staff computers.
Any questions from board members? All right, Chris, let's go to the 6 AV systems for 120.
So of the $120,000, $80,000 of that is contingent upon being awarded a grant. We have not yet applied for this grant. This is for the COPS program with the Bureau of Justice to upgrade our PA systems at the middle and high school. Our $80,000 is only a 25% contribution that we are required to make of the total, which is $286,551. So again, that grant would provide 75% of the funding to upgrade those two systems, which are 16 and 21 years old for Stonington Middle School and Stonington High School, respectively. So the systems are the original systems from the last renovation of both those buildings and in desperate need of being upgraded. This also would provide the Stonington Police Department to have access to the emergency alerting system. I've had several conversations with them. We have a MOU signed with the police department as well for this project. It also provides emergency alerting throughout the building and new intercom systems in all of the classrooms for student safety. Again, that would be contingent upon being awarded the grant. If we were not awarded the grant, $80,000 of this line would be returned to the town. The other $40,000 is going towards the upgrades of the Stonington High School Commons and Auditorium projectors, which are large format, long throw, higher end projectors. And that is also for the installation of a projector or AV setup in the district office BOE meeting room. When the budget was put together, it was originally a projector. We would likely now move it to more of a virtual conference room. So again, it would be to that tune of the additional $10,000 for that line. This is also for an interactive panel at the middle and high school. The elementary schools currently have the interactive panels in every single classroom. What we're looking to do as a district is get a few test models of a non-smart branded interactive panel deployed so that teachers can begin getting comfortable with those when we're up for refresh at those elementary schools. And also provides digital signage for the high school as well.
Do you mentioned that grant a few times? What would be the timing on that? When would you have an understanding of whether we would be receiving that grant money?
The grant opens, I believe, next month. They haven't issued a target date yet, but that's when they've typically seen this grant open. We would likely know by summer. They understand that most of the organizations applying for this grant would need to implement and roll out over the summer. So typically they award their funding commitment decision letters in the summer so that by fall you can have these systems implemented. Again, I don't have an exact timeline on that. But as I stated before, if that is not awarded, then the $8,000 match would be returned to the town.
Yeah, thanks.
Mike, if I may, this is Jim Sullivan again. If the board was to go ahead and fund this $120,000 in the actual budget, what I would propose then is having an offset of $80,000 grant down below and like similar to line 171, $80,000. And if the funding didn't come through, then they would be prohibited from expending the $80,000 of funds. Just food for thought.
I agree, Jim. That's the way it ought to be, given what Chris is saying.
Okay.
Other questions, board members? All right. Peter, I believe you're up.
Yep, I think it's my turn now. We can start off with, do you have a line that says PCB air monitoring for elementary schools? That is going to be completed out by the, I believe, the end of March. We're going to have our last test, but that was taken care of by the Board of Finance. Isn't that correct, Jim Sullivan?
That's correct, Peter.
Yes. So now the next one here, District Office Phase 2 AC Classroom Upgrade. This is part of the District Office renovation project that we've been taking on. And this Phase 2 is for the AC for all the classrooms upstairs, and also for the annex and the east wing of the first floor. That would AC the majority of these of that section. What we're doing right now is we have window units in. Each window unit requires a 20 amp circuit. These mini split systems that we're putting in are what's called a multi-city unit. They require a 60 amp service, and they service up to 8 classrooms. So we can save quite a bit on power there. Are there any questions on that?
You're talking line 147, the AC upgrade?
That's the District Office Phase 2 AC and classroom upgrade.
There was $1 in there, and I see now it's listed as an A. Shouldn't that be a B?
That should be.
Well, you did fund part of it 2 years ago for the district office, is the Pawcatuck Middle School change over to district office. This is the same contractor doing it. The contractor, Sarazen, won the award for the construction. We asked them to split it up in phases so we could do this easily over a period of years.
And Peter, this is David, another way, just looking out, I see that there's then 2 more $200,000 placeholders out there.
Yes.
Is that because there's additional phases, or we're starting to replace it again?
Hold on a second. That's a good question. No, we would not be replacing it again. No. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know the answer to that.
Peter?
Yeah, there's a difference there between what's in our books and...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Broke up, Mike.
Sorry, I was saying that there's a difference between what's in the PDF attachment with all the details versus, that has the additional amounts that David's referring to, but our book doesn't show that in the out years. So just
okay.
Something's out.
Do you want me to move on to the roof ladders, or do you have any other questions on the district office AC?
Let's talk, tell me about these roof ladders. I remember you having a discussion.
Yes, yeah. So at the high school, and the stainless steel section of the pitched roof, there's not a contractor that will go up on that roof without either a ladder or a cabling system located along the ridge, because it's too slippery. So we have mechanical units up there that have never been checked since the school was built. And this is only on the stainless steel section. So that's something that I know that the systems are running, but I don't know if they're running well or if they're actually, the belts have slipped off. But I can tell if the motors are, I can tell if the motors are running. I can't tell if the fan's working. So we have no ability to service any of the fans that are up there. And we have 6 fans on the science wing, and there's also a fan system above the music room that we need to service. And again, no contractor will go up on that roof.
In your mind, is this the highest priority that you have in your budget?
On the ladders and roof cables? Well, they're all high priority.
Oh, no, let's be a little more specific here. What's your number 1 priority?
Well, that's a good question. I would like to see the roof ladders. And by the way, we've also we have a 35,000 in the SIP, and what we did is we went out to bid. It came back at 134,000, or I believe it's 137,000. It was an older bid, and I called the contractor and he upgraded it just on the phone. That is a high priority. We need to have these systems checked, but we also need to have the high school AC units rebuilt. There's a lot of high priorities.
We need to get out our pencil.
Yeah, I know it's a tough one. I mean, this is what we're dealing with is systems that are hitting their end of life, becoming critically in need of repair, and we need to replace some of these units, and it's across the district. When I first came on 3 years ago, I mean, there was a lot that needed to be addressed, and we're addressing them slowly, but that's positive. So I'd like to see. I mean, again, everything that I've put down here is considered a high priority. Let me go to the. Yep, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so we have the high school rooftop units rebuild in Gym AC. I know you've seen this one before. Right now, the coils for the AC and the rooftop units, we did replace 4 of them 2 years ago. The remainder of them, we can rebuild. We don't have to replace the entire unit. We can rebuild the insides of them. The coils are disintegrating because of the salt air. If you recall, I think I've mentioned this once before. These units were installed prior to regulations of the 2-mile radius. We just made it by 2 miles, and what's happening is the coils are disintegrating just from the corrosion. This is rendering all these coils seriously inefficient. We have, at best, we're running at 50% on some of them. Some of them are down to 30% efficiency. So when we're trying to cool the building, we really are wasting huge amounts of energy. It's also putting an unnecessary strain on the compressors, the fans, and everything else in the whole system trying to run this cooling around the building. So that is a very high priority to repair.
Now, Peter, you can't get up there to fix some of those units unless you have. That's not for the rooftop units. Those are for the exhaust fans. The exhaust fan, there's only exhaust fans on the stainless steel roof, not the coils or top units for heating and cooling. They're on the bituminous roof.
They're on the either on the EPDM or the bituminous roof on the top.
And Peter, this is Dave Motherway. I see that on the spreadsheet I'm looking at, there's next year an expected $266,000. Is this only part of the units we're looking at?
Well, we do it. I think I had it built up in 2 sets. There's $599. We'll do most of the rooftop units. The $266 will add AC to the gym. And right now, the gym at the high school is the only section of the school that's not AC. And with the programs that are occurring there in the summertime, when we're not in any kind of a pandemic, we have quite a few kids in that building that run that are operating in that gym. And it's an absolute oven in there. And what happens is the kids will, and it's understandable, they will start to open up the hallway doors to try to gain any AC they can. And they're drawing from the other parts of the building, but the gym being so big, it ends up putting a huge demand on the system, and we end up sweating the walls a little bit, which is not a good situation and can actually contribute to mold.
Other questions?
If we go down to the next line, which says kitchen equipment upgrade, we did that. Thank you very much. And I don't know of any other better year that you could have done this than this year with the kitchen staff and what they've been doing and their heroic efforts to feed the school or feed the townspeople of Stonington. Those were perfectly timed. Thank you very much. That was a great, great thing. Now, my favorite topic is the upgrade BMS at SMS and district office. The BMS is the building management system, which allows me to dial into the school and see how the heating system's working at any given time. And that's across the district. I can do it for Danes Mill. I can do it for West Vine. I can do it for the Stonington High School. I am unable to, I can text Stonington Middle School, but I cannot make changes or get alarms from Stonington Middle School. Going to district office, we run on a system that's so old that's not even supported by the Allerton or ABS system. I'm actually buying parts for that on eBay.
The software for that Peter's speaking to runs on Windows XP, just to put it in perspective.
Right. So, and when that is, Chris, is that the only Windows XP we're running in the district right now? Is that?
Yes, those
that
are
one computer. The one
Windows
computer that runs the heat. And to give you an example, what can happen is if we have a failure in the heating system at any time in the school, I get no alert from district office. That happened this year. We had a failure. Heating system was down. I went into the building. It was 50 degrees. There was no one in any of the other schools that would have alerted me. We buy these parts that we need to repair the system or to repair the control system. Like I said, on eBay, they are not becoming very popular anymore. I buy them whenever I can, and I use them, and I have them in reserve. These are all used parts. So this is something that really is it's a must do, or we're gonna find ourselves in trouble with the district office heating system. And you want to rerun it. You don't want. You can say to yourself, we can shut the BMS off. You can run the heating system solo. But by doing that, you're chewing up tremendous amounts of fuel. With the building management system, it allows us to dial the heat system back at night. It allows us to bring it up in the morning. It allows us to turn it down when on low use. We can run lights off. We run everything off of it. So this is the brains behind it's the brains and the energy manager behind the entire school in regards to heating, cooling, and lights. And also all the fans as well. All the exhaust fans run off of it, everything. On that, any questions on that?
I'm looking at a 157.7. Is that correct amount?
That's correct. That's what happens is, in the lion's share of that is at district office, because there's a lot more parts that need to be replaced. Stonington Middle School is some parts and software upgrades. At the district office, it's most of the control valves, the entire control system, and the computer.
Any other questions? All right, keep going, Peter.
Okay, flooring and repair. This is just general district-wide flooring repair. The majority of this money is targeted towards the library, which the rug in the high school library is very badly torn. It's split lengthwise down the entire width of the library. It's been currently repaired with duct tape, but we're more concerned about people tripping over it. And the rug is at end of life. We're at 15 years or 16 years of the rug. So that is a must need. Any questions on the flooring? Minivans for special ed replacement, we're at 0 with that, so that's a non-item. High school generator upgrade. I don't know if you recall last year I talked about this. Our high school generator, and by the way, the high school is considered a point of dispensary. It's also considered a shelter. Our high school generator can run the entire high school. It's a 500 kW generator. The only problem is that the panel going into the high school is only 600 amps, which allows us to only operate just the commons area. Everything else goes dark in the power failure. We can run the boilers and we can run the circulator pumps, but we cannot run any of the fans to transfer heat if it ever would happen during the winter. None of the air conditioning will work anywhere beyond the commons and cafeteria area. We will be able to run the cafeteria, and that's it. So we will only be able to house 900 people in that area, and that's it. Then you'd be able to house them somewhere else. But if you're considering a cooling center, you can't do that. So what I'm proposing is that we add more ability to use the power of the generator. When we have a full load on the generator, to give you an example, that generator only operates at 12%. Those generators are designed to run at 80% under full load. We're not even close to that yet, and we should be able to do that. Any questions on that?
So it's not necessarily the upgrade of the generator, but the transfer panel.
We need more panels. Yeah, or a bigger panel. We just can't even appreciate the power of the generator. So that's inside infrastructure. Generator works fine. We just don't have the ability to unload the power.
Peter, it's Mike.
Yep.
Would it make sense to try and phase this, or I mean, it seems like this is kind of the all-in price, right?
No. This would get us to probably a 50% level. So these panels are extremely expensive, and it requires enormous wiring to do. So we get to 50% where we can open up more of the building and at least run. My big concern is this: if we have a massive freeze and there's no power, like I said, we can run the boilers and we can run the circulator pumps, but we cannot transfer any of the heat from the circulator pumps to any parts of the building. So we run the risk of freezing the water lines in the walls. That's the problem. Now you have a huge issue with water damage. Like I said, we can heat it, we can run the pumps, but we can't transfer the heat into the building. So if we can get to 50%, we can at least start hitting these critical areas, opening up a larger area of the building for air conditioning, opening up a larger area for heating. If you had a catastrophic failure and needed a warming center in the wintertime, you can open up the gym, you could open up hallways, you could open up classrooms. But right now, we don't have that ability.
Peter, it's Lynn. How did they manage to to get a 500 kilowatt generator and 600 amps of a transfer?
That's a really good question.
Generator.
I've heard some story. I don't know what is the folklore behind it. I heard some stories that they weren't even planning to put a generator at the high school. But again, that's before my time, so I really don't know.
I think it was value engineered.
Moving to the next one. Any questions? Any further questions? I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead. Keep going, Peter.
Okay. High school gym upgrade. This refers to the floor sanding, painting, and new pads and curtains in the gym. Currently, the pads and curtains have been torn and ripped, and there's one curtain that has a tear, actually 3 tears in it, lengthwise from ceiling to floor. There's also the floor has never been fully sanded down to the wood, even during the last building project down in I think it was in 2004, 2006. They sanded a few layers of the finish off and then painted it, but never took it down to the wood. There's also the entire gym needs to be painted. It just needs to be cleaned up. This is the kind of the focal point of the town. We have a lot of events there. Again, it was tough this year with nothing really happening, but I mean, we have basketball games. The town uses this gym. That is the most used building in the town is the high school gym. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And by sanding the floors, we're also having trouble adhering finish to the floor because of the number of finishes that are on the floor. So that needs, and if you're going to sand it to that level, you might as well take it to wood anyway. And gives the opportunity to brighten up the whole gym a little bit with a nice new floor. Clean it up with the painting. I've got my fingers crossed for the town vote for the LED lighting that's going in. So we can make the gym look like a proper facility, and clean up the tears and rips in the curtains and the pads.
And Peter, when do you pull that off?
What's that?
When do you pull that off, being that it's the busiest building in the town?
Yeah, well, that's another good question. You're gonna have to you would have to shut it down in order to do some of these jobs. Generally, the floor sanding and refinishing would take about 2 weeks. Pads are generally a 3 or 4 day install. Curtains would be a 1 day install. Painting the gym would take probably a week. So you can do these things in the order that you would do them is, of course, you'd paint the gym. Second, you would then sand the floors and get that all refinished. And then the third thing you would do is put the new pads on. So you would have to shut the gym down, but when it's all done, it's going to look brand new. Are there any questions on that?
Well, what are the pads? It's Lynn.
Lynn, the pads are on either side of the walls for the basketball net. So when kids are playing basketball, if they run past it, they hit the wall, they're not going to get hurt.
They used to just hang the gymnastics mat with books.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions?
None?
Then I have the SMS roof project, which I believe we've already we've gone out to bid. We've chosen a contractor, and so I guess I believe that money is already in the bank, so we're all set with that. Middle school AC upgrade. That's been an issue for a while. That building is the only school that does not have any kind of air conditioning for it. We have been going back and forth trying to figure out how we can do this best. It really came to a head, of course, with the pandemic and not being able to provide conditioned air in the summer or in what would be the swing seasons. So we have more concern about mold and moisture buildup in the building. Our contractors from MCOR, the engineers there, have designed a fairly interesting system, which is a chilled beam system. There's not a lot of room in the ceiling, so we don't have a lot of area or real estate for ductwork. And the chill beam system is kind of an interesting system that you chill water with a chiller outside. That water gets pumped to the room, and the room has a very low speed fan which distributes the cool air off the chilled beam in each one of the rooms. It doesn't take up a lot of real estate. It's thankfully less by about $500,000 than the other estimates I've gotten, and it does give us the ability to AC the building.
So it's still $1,950,000.
Yes.
Peter, this is Bob Stachin. I'm curious. I know that there have been connections between ventilation and the pandemic, as you mentioned. Is there any funds available to assist with can we move this off to the other CARES 2 budget as well? Or is there any money available to assist with this sort of upgrade, which would impact that sort of all those issues related to the virus?
We're looking into that, but I haven't gotten any real firm, solid answer on that. But I'm cautiously optimistic.
Do you have any timeline on because that would certainly have an impact on our budget this year? I mean, do you have any timeline on when you think you might have any of that information available?
I don't. I can get back to you on that, but I don't have anything right now. I can't say like in a week I'll have an answer.
And from your, again, not committing you to anything, but from what you're hearing, is are you hearing that the funds are in like matching funds? Is it 70%? Have you heard any specifics in regards to the type of funds that are available?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything to that effect.
Well, I think we look forward to as soon as you can any sort of details, because that's the big ticket item on here. This is that's the big ticket item. So any information you have, even, and you can caveat it with, that it's preliminary, but even preliminary information as we're in the budget system. It doesn't sound like you're going to get answers to this before we have to put the budget to finalize the budget. Is that accurate?
That would probably be a fair estimate. Yes.
Okay. Well, again, any preliminary information you can provide
Certainly.
us would be helpful as we try to figure out what the final budget. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Any other questions on the middle school AC?
Yeah, it's Mike here. So I'm just thinking kind of longer term planning for the middle school. So we've renovated the elementary schools, the high school done before that. I mean, the middle school would be the next one in terms of some major capital investment or improvements. I'm just thinking, by doing this now, could we potentially be paying for this twice, or how would this fit into a longer term building strategy for the middle school?
know, the last renovation, I believe, at the Mystic Middle School was 1988, I want to say. I think that was our last renovation that we had. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it was 2000. So that's, you're right, it is targeted for, for a new renovation or upgrades are going to be done. With the chilled beam system, it lends itself easier to renovation than it does with ductwork because you're dealing with line sets and not, there's no hard ductwork in there. So that I'm not saying that we would take it out and put it in again, but again, that's a good question. And if we can set down to a target, if we're going to renovate the middle school, that would work out great. But if we're not, then it's a very uncomfortable building in the summertime.
Peter, it's Lynn. I've got a question too, which is on your original SIP sheet, you were looking for 1.7 million for this.
Yes.
So where the other 250 come from?
So I contacted MCOR and talked to Mike Mullen, and what's happening in the construction industry, unfortunately, is prices have been flying upwards. Whether it's home renovation, commercial constructions, it's really hard to pin a price down. So we figured in a contingency of that amount of money to see if we could get this thing going.
Is it an efficient system to operate?
It is, because you're only chilling fluid, and you have low speed fans. There's no fans that are running at any high speed, so you don't need a lot of horsepower to run it. The biggest thing that you need is the power to run the chiller and the pump. Other schools, actually, Clinton school system has one in there. They do have to be installed very well because you can have some drawbacks on them. One of the drawbacks is you can cause dripping. Again, if it's installed and sized correctly, those problems don't exist. But if it's installed and over-installed or over-calculated for the amount of cooling that you need, you could create a dripping problem at the chilled beam. But if you weigh that against the fact that we don't have to rebuild all the ceilings to run ductworks in, by choosing the correct contractor to install this, you could probably do better with a chilled beam system.
As a temporary measure, given Mike's question, couldn't do window units? Or in the wall units?
With the window units, we run the issue of not having enough power in the building.
Does that be true for like Mitsubishi stuff too?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you could then you could do the rooftop units if you're going to do the multi-city Mitsubishi units. That's again, you're running line sets to each room, and then you can get heating and cooling. It's a more expensive system.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Peter.
Next item is a replacement truck. That should be trucks. That amount, 65,000, is for 2 trucks and plows. We currently have 4 trucks and plows at our service at the school, 2 of which are working fine. The other 2 are not so good. There's a tremendous amount of rust built up. We've actually been keeping 2 of these on the road with a lot of patchwork. Their time is up. One's 21, one's 22 years old. The other one was a hand-me-down from the fire department. This is they're beyond their life. It's any money that we put into these trucks to repair is money wasted.
You have 4 of them because there's 4 schools?
We had 4 trucks. It was 1 for each maintenance worker that we had because, and now, and what we do, that was part of the plowing plan, is that 1 person would go to each school and tackle that system and work with the town. So the town does all the blacktop surfaces. We do all the sidewalks and smaller entries. We use our trucks, we use our tractors, we use our snow blowers to help clean off all the sidewalks and so on. And then each one of the trucks is used for each one of the operators to go around to the different schools to do their maintenance chores.
Okay, not so.
Is this a dump truck we're talking about?
No, these are pickup trucks.
Other questions?
I want to see those trucks.
I'm happy to show anybody any of these trucks if they'd like to see them.
I will give you a call.
Absolutely, come on down. I'll make sure you bring your clothes. You can crawl underneath them because you got to really see some of these the frames. It's so next one is middle school science rooms. As you know, as part of the Stonington Middle School, when we converged all these classrooms, we did open up some classrooms that were not really designed as science rooms, and we wanted to upgrade these areas to make them science worthy, which is getting rid of the carpet floors, adding the appropriate science tables, getting some science furniture in there appropriate to the. So that's what that's for, and that's basically for 2 classrooms that we would be upgrading in the Stonington Middle School. Any questions on that?
Nope, go ahead.
Sports maintenance turf field utility vehicle. This is a Gator. This is allows us to go on the field, on the turf field to do necessary maintenance. It's also, we're teaming up with the sports department so they can use this to help set up for games. As you know, we cannot drive any trucks or vehicles on that turf. We do not have at this point any vehicle that we can drive on the turf field. Anything that has to be brought out to the turf field has to be brought out manually. That includes goalposts, that includes cones, barriers, anything that has to do with practices, lacrosse nets. And also part of the safety end of this is if a student does get hurt on the field, this allows them to get the person off the field safely into the ambulance.
How is it different than a tractor?
Well, it's got a little bit more speed. It has the ability to hold. It's honestly the electric Gator is like a mini pickup truck, but it doesn't weigh as much. So it's a very small tool, or a very small vehicle with a 5 foot long bed that's 5 feet wide. So you can put at least some stuff in there, and you can actually then take the sidewalls down on the bed and turn it into a flatbed.
No, I have one, so I know what it is, but why can it go places that the tractor can't? With the wide tires and stuff.
I'm not saying that the tractor couldn't go on the field, but the tractor doesn't have anything that would be useful to get the stuff out on the field.
You don't have a trailer?
You can't put it in a bucket?
We don't have a trailer for any of the tractors.
No, but you can't put it in a bucket? Whatever you're getting out there?
It's not that big. The bucket on our Kubota is 5 feet by 2 feet. I don't think it's legal to haul any person in a bucket either, if they were hurt.
Peter, what happens? It's Deb Norman. What happens when someone is injured now? What happens?
We have a paint electric vehicle, which was an old golf cart that we converted to paint lines on the field. So we take them in the paint vehicle and get them off the field to the track, and the ambulance picks them up there.
Okay, thanks.
Any
other questions?
All right, go ahead, Peter.
So the track replacement and repair, this is a forward-looking item. This is something that we need to start thinking about before it becomes a problem. We do have a couple patches of the track that have started to deteriorate. It's not needing to be done immediately, but I have this on here as something that we really should begin to think about.
Peter, it's Mike. Is this proposed amount for next fiscal an actual repair, or is it just setting aside of money to build up an account?
It's setting aside money. I mean, it can be upwards of $100,000 to repair the track. So I wanted to go easy on this. It would be something that we need to start thinking. According to Brian Marone, our track is really in need of, I should say, it's in need of consideration to start thinking about maintenance so that we don't get hit all at once. We've been able to address a couple of the items on the track, which have been cracking and some repairs that needed to be done, and that's fine. We're good with that, but it's coming time to put some attention to it. So yes, this is something that's, we're trying to build an account of.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, who's Brian Marone?
Brian Marone's the athletic director at the high school. I'm sorry, I should have told you that. That's my fault. High school roof repair. This is going to be something that's, it's going to be tough to hear. We have another 5 to 6 years left on the roof at the high school. That's for the EPDM. We have two different sections of the roof. You have the stainless steel section, which is considered a 100-year roof. We don't need to worry about that. That's a really good roof. In our lifetimes, we're not going to have to worry about that roof. That's awesome. We have another section of the high school roof, which is asphalt or flat asphalt rolled roofing. We have another section of the roof, which is EPDM, which is plastic. The EPDM that I have quoted in here as part of a repair is a result of us fixing the rooftop units on a regular basis. The roof has been damaged. Between the amount of traffic that's gone up there, with people with stones in their shoes, working up there, they're going to drop tools on it. They have pierced over 400 holes in the roof. Now, we've been trying to keep up on this, but we haven't. It's too many. Now, what's happened is we've lost the underlayment in a section of the roof. The EPDM has lost its ability to bind itself down to the roof. It's concerning to the point if we have a high wind rate, it could actually blow that section off. So what we need to do is we need to start thinking about repairing these sections to get the extra life out of the roof. So this is one of these snowball effects of if we aren't, if the rooftop units aren't getting fixed and we're going up there and trying to keep them running, we're actually damaging something else as a result of it.
What do you mean it's a plastic roof? Do you mean like a rubber roof?
Yeah, it's rubber. Yeah, the EPDM it's a poly acetate or PVC. So it's a plastic roof. Yes, it's like a sheet of plastic tarp.
What should life have been?
It should be 20 years old. You should get 20 years out of it. But what's happened is the binding has released as a result of the little pinholes that have developed in it. We had Gordian do a huge report on this. I think I included part of that in there, and it's concerning. Again, it's not catastrophic, but it is something that we need to think about and start addressing.
What do you estimate the total cost to do the repair?
We had an estimate up to I think it was $490,000.
That's the next year.
Yeah. So what they want to do is some of these costs are to do with a deep scan of the roof to see exactly how much they have to take up of it. They know there's certain sections that have let go, and they can fix and bind and top coat some of the other parts. But in the end result, the 490,000 is to repair that large section that needs to be done. And this is above the commons.
So what's the 20, I'm sorry, Deb.
How does that get us? How many years does that buy us?
You can actually get up to another 10 to 15 years on the roof.
So what's the 25 then? Just for the study?
It's to scan the roof to see exactly how far back they have to cut it.
So that's an analysis, is what you're telling us.
That's an analysis, yes.
But the repair itself is around $490K.
That's correct.
God, what's a new roof?
Oh, that section is probably going to be close to $2 million. Yeah, it's a big section. Because that whole section that incorporates the commons, all the way down to the shops, and all the way forward to the just by the band area. So it's that whole wing, and also on top of the gym.
So it's most of the roof.
It's the smallest section is the asphalt rolled roofing, which is above the office area. And let's see, that's the office area, guidance, and just before the courtyard.
Yeah, so, I mean, we would replace it with the same kind of roof and have the same continuing set of problems?
No, you wouldn't, because I mean, the idea, the key would be is to fix the rooftop units first. Stop the people from having so much traffic up there to repair it, and then you put the roof on, and then you've got a full a longer life on it.
Wouldn't you have walkways and access points and around units?
Yep, there are walkways there. The problem is that some of the pieces that come out of the that we've had to replace outside of the rooftop units are so big they go past the walkway. So when you pull out a large compressor, you're going to have 4 or 5 guys up there with some either hand trucks or flatbeds, and they just can't. The walkways are only 2 feet wide. So when you pull these compressors out, and some of these compressors are upwards of 300 and 400 pounds, they just don't have the room to move.
Sounds to me like it'd be easier to bring a rigger in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cheaper because it'd save the roof. Right.
Rigger and a crane.
There's also another culprit up on the roof. We have seagulls that like to bring their catch, and if you've seen them dropping the shells on the beach, they grab crabs, they grab shells, they grab snails, and they fly up high and they drop it on the roof and they eat it right there. So I know but it is a cause of one of the punctures.
But you're saying that this kind of expensive roof, a seagull can ruin it?
Well, the thickness of the plastic is probably about 1/16 of an inch. So when they drop a crab or something from about 30 or 40 feet up in the air, it'll put a pinhole through it. The tears they're not tears. It's actually, these are just little pinholes, and I know it, but there's a lot of them. That's the biggest issue.
Sounds like a very fragile roof. An expensive, fragile roof.
Yeah.
And what would a rubber roof do? Wouldn't it be better?
Well, that's the EPDM is that roof. That's what you're talking about is the rubber roof.
I mean, I've got them here. And seagulls. Now I got to get the drone out and look at them.
Yeah.
But it just seems extremely fragile to me for such a ton of money. Okay.
Other questions?
Interior paint and repair. That's pretty much just district-wide. We tried to do a few classrooms a year, and we have quite a few different classrooms that need to be addressed, including some of the locker rooms. So we usually do a lot of that in-house. Some of it, if it's too tall, we'll farm it out to a contractor. But any questions on the paint and repair? Classroom furniture, it really speaks for itself as well. Some of the furniture that's been there has been there for 20 years. It's seen its fair share of wear and tear. We use what we have stored as we can, but some of it just doesn't seem to work for the classrooms that are going to be we need to put them into. So there's upgrades of classroom furniture. Any questions on that? Replacing block sets, and this is at district office. Currently at district office, we have 7 sets of keys. Different locks. We've got most of them done. We need to finish off the rest of them, which are basically everything from the home ec room down all the way to the gymnasium and all the storage rooms in the gymnasium, and we will have all the locks done to 1 key.
And Peter, this is David, by the way. For some reason, I see it says $20,000 here, but I recall the number $15,000. Is that on the project plan or something?
No, that's a increase in cost on that. I was low on the 15,000. I would have been short on that. And when I called the contractor back, it was that for us.
Okay, thank you.
David, right in the sheet, it was 15 proposed last year.
Okay.
Yep, you're exactly right. Then it was brought down to $1, and this year it's back in at 20. So you're exactly right. All right, any questions? Any other questions for Peter this time?
Tim, it's Mike. Yeah, one more for Peter. Sorry, I hate to go backtrack here, but it took me a little bit of time to dig out the information. Back on the high school AC units, Peter, I thought I heard you say you guys were able to get 4 of those done already. Was that correct?
Yes. Yep. Now, what we did is we replaced the entire unit up on the academic wing. So there was rooftops units 1S, 2S, and 1S, 1N, 2S, 2N. Those are the 4 units that control the entire academic wing of the school. Those are brand new units set in place. You know, those were, I want to say that was about $650 or $1,000 that Ashley MCOR did. What we've discovered is that we can actually rebuild the units, and that's why we can do the remaining 9 of them for the price that I have in there, which is $599,000, by just replacing the coils and replacing the drives and replacing the controllers in it. It takes longer to do, but it's cheaper in the long run. And we basically are keeping the shell of the rooftop unit and replacing the insides of it.
Okay. Yep. All right. No, thanks. I hadn't realized. I thought you were saying those 4 had been done this past fiscal year. So I was trying to understand why the $599 was holding steady.
Right. Okay.
But I didn't know last year thing. That's again, I'm digging out my notes from these discussions last year, and I had written down that you guys thought you might have $250K set aside in district office funds that you could put towards this. Did that obviously did happen? But does that ring any bells for you, or?
Not for me.
No. Okay. All right. Trying to see if we've got any other levers or any other sources here that might help defray some of the costs. Okay. All right. Thanks.
You bet.
Any other questions from members for either Chris or Peter? No. All right. Thank you all. I thank everyone from the Board of Ed and from the school administration for being part of this and a good presentation. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is discussion of the approval motion to approve refunding of the 13-14 general obligation bonds. Jim, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Sure. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke with our financial advisor, who's always reviewing our outstanding debts for maturities and current interest rates to see when and if we'll have an opportunity for refunding, which is essentially just refinancing the bonds at a lower rates, similar to what you would do with the mortgage when mortgage rates go down. Our financial advisor identified 2 issuances that are ripe for refunding: the 2013 and 2014 general obligation bonds. I enclosed, you should have in front of you two different schedules, which is actually each one is a separate analysis. Each one is a combination of refunding both of those, the 13 and the 2014 bonds. The difference between the 2 scenarios is one where you see the savings taken over the life of the remaining life of the bond, which is 14 years. In scenario 1, you'll get most of the savings up front, which would be a total of savings of $835,000. If you want to take the savings up front, you can get $677,000 in year 1. So if we were to refund this spring, which we will most likely be able to do mid-February, mid-May, we could possibly decrease our debt service for the 21-22 fiscal year by $677,000. If you were to take scenario 2, you would have a decrease of $65,000 in that year, and a similar decrease in the following 13 years after that. Obviously, based on the stress on the town, I would presume the Board of Finance would prefer to take the savings up front rather than over time. We generally do it over time. It's just it keeps your budgeting smooth, but these are extraordinary times and may call for extraordinary measures. And I will caveat that this analysis was done 2 weeks ago with a presumptive interest rate, refunding interest rate of 1.5. The rates are going up. These numbers are likely, most probably, going to change to the negative by the time we get to the mid-May, when we would be able to actually execute the refunding. So right now, I just try to get a flavor for or an idea of what scenario the Board of Finance would prefer, if at all, if either, and then I'll just I'll keep you guys apprised of it as we go along. And if the interest rates go up to 3.5%, then this might not make sense. So it's going to be a moving target. So I just want to get a sense from the board now if they would like to, if the savings make sense come May, which scenario they would like to pursue. And I'll leave it there.
Jim, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Sorry, Tim. Can I ask?
Go ahead, Lynn. Yep.
Jim, so if we refi it now, when can we refi it again?
Well, we wouldn't be able to refi these again.
Ever, right?
Yeah, they would probably maybe in the last 2 years of their life. So 14, 12 years from now.
All right. So we have to guess at what rates are going to do.
Yes. I know gas is going up. My interest on my savings account isn't going up, but everything else seems to be going up. So I don't know.
If we take all the savings up front, then the subsequent years we're basically slugging the mill rate. Whereas if we amortize the rate savings over time, it'll be a gradual application of the savings, so that we'll not have a direct or as great an effect on the mill rate.
Well, what happens if you take the savings this year and if you don't supplant it with other spending, then you got a big increase. You'll have a dramatic decrease, or actually not a dramatic decrease, maybe half a mill rate this year, and then next year maybe you're going up a mill rate, all things being equal. So
you mean a mill?
A mill,
yes.
Yes.
A big increase.
Right. Excuse me.
I prefer not to slug the budget, Mr. Chairman.
So we have a sense from one member they wouldn't want to slug the budget. Mr. Motherway?
Well, I like the idea of having the gradual piece. The question is the value going to be there when the timing?
Yeah, we don't know.
And I guess, I agree with what Jim is saying. Interest rates are seeing different pressures right now. So right now, we're not committing to anything. It's just, if it looked like this in May, what's your instinct?
Do it over time.
Yeah. Okay. Gradual. Mike, do you have a sense?
Yeah. I guess maybe back on the first question. I'd be inclined to move. I think we're at historically low rates. I don't think they're getting much lower than where they are. So I understand that, right? Then I'd be locking ourselves in and not be able to refinance again. But I'd rather move now while we know we have savings relative to our current position, and knowing that we're again at historically low levels. So I would be in favor of, yes, let's do something. And yeah, I would all else being equal, rather see that be smooth than one big lump.
Okay.
I have to reserve judgment until May, because the reason that there's upward pressure on rates is because of all the CARES funding. So, and the fears of inflation, and it's just people's perception. It doesn't mean anything's any different. So I can't answer the question until I understood the PV of the delta.
This is Bob Statchin. I just say, obviously, we've want to take advantage of these savings, and thanks, Jim, for running this down. Is there anything, if we did take the savings up front, I mean, we're looking at $900,000 there over there. Is there anything we could do with that money that would create other savings over that period of time? I'm kind of, if we get the money, can we do something with it that would be effective, that would allow for continued savings that would match the long-term savings in the other scenario?
Not really. The only way I think to get savings would to pay down debt, but you can't pay down debt. This is how you pay down debt. You couldn't take the savings and apply it to other outstanding debt. So all you'd be doing, the purpose of this is just to free up money for other purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Deb, do you have a sense of what you would think?
Yes, I'm going to agree with Mike. I think it's better to do now. My gut feeling is it's going to get painful and just keep going. But again, Lynn tends to have a little bit more of a perspective, as it's a little bit more her world. But I would vote to do it now.
But we don't have to make the decision now, correct, Jim? We just have to indicate.
Correct. Yeah, just put it on your radar.
Yeah, so we don't have to decide now. I mean, obviously, if there's savings to be had when we can do this, we do it. But right now, we don't. It's a real hard question to answer in March.
Right now, all Jim's trying to do right now is get a sense of, okay, if this were the way it looked in March, which we all agree it probably won't, would you rather front load the debt services, or would you rather take the savings over the remaining life of the loan? That's really the question that's in front of the board, is which direction would you prefer if these were how the numbers look, knowing that these are going to change?
Well, and still I would answer that question as, can we answer that after Sunday? Because a lot of it's going to depend on where this budget is going.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean,
I'm not trying to be difficult, but because I don't want to use I don't want to use less or fewer dollars of savings in order to finance something we otherwise wouldn't pay for now. You know what I'm saying? So it's a question to me that comes after we decide what we're doing with the budget, but that's just me.
All right. Well, yeah, we don't need an answer today. Something to think about. We'll be starting on the OS, the official statement, getting work on that in the next few weeks. So just give the idea of financial advisor how you should start structuring this, maybe in the next three or 4 weeks.
And Jim, you and I can work on that in the next 3 or 4 weeks and watch where the interest rates go and watch where deliberations on the budget go, and we might be able to paint a clearer picture as we go here. So I'll keep interfacing with you, and I can give you some better direction as we go forward.
Very good.
Hey,
okay,
Jim,
next item.
Well, hold on one second. Apropos Bob Stachen's question, what do we do for cash management?
Well, we have several banks that we just move money around looking for the best interest rate. We try to play one off the other. We don't. It's not like we have it's not like we're playing the markets. Let's put it that way. We're limited on where we can put our money. It all has to be in either U.S. Treasuries or some sort, or CDs or cash or money markets, things like that. So generally, 2 years ago, we had some money in U.S. Treasuries up to a year and a half ago with Morgan Stanley, and they pulled out of the municipal market. So all that money's just been reallocated into CDs, which we have laddered. I haven't had a chance to, don't had time to do that. But what we do is we play off each bank against one another every month or two. We see what the rates are doing, and we call with this bank and saying we want to move some money here. What can you do for us? That type of thing. So that's how we try to maximize return.
Okay, so there's some active management of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's cash. It's just cash pretty much, but trying to get the best rate on your cash, which is the differences are negligible at this point in the market. Last year, year and a half ago, 2 years was different. There was significant differences between banks, and people were jockeying for our money. Now everything's in the basement. So.
Yeah. All right. But T-bills are an option, right?
Pardon?
T-bills are an option, right?
T-bills?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. But then, yeah, I mean, ideally we'd be doing that now. It's just I don't have the time to actively manage the funds that way. Just don't have the time or personnel.
Okay.
And I'll just a very quick follow-up, but I mean, I was also thinking not even investment, but are there projects that would result in savings such that those funds could be directed to that project? Some, was also something just as we review this opportunity, kind of a cash is king approach, where if there was something that we could do.
These aren't funds. Okay, this isn't funding coming in. This is reducing debt services. So
right, I understand, but I mean, we're gonna pay that amount, and we're not gonna in those off years.
Well, I'll say this. Like a good example is these. This is on the Board of Ed side. Is that the LED project they're looking to do. They're if this passes through the town budget, they get a 4-year 0% loan to invest in LED lighting. That's going to save on the electric bill for the next 15, 20 years. So that's a way to actually spend somebody else's money it's actually going to be paid off through savings in electric bill on the monthly electric bills. But likewise, the way you save money like that is what we're doing now with the town hall. If you're updating HVAC systems that are going to be more efficient, or improve the heating systems, all that type of stuff. It's improved. Modernizing infrastructure is probably the only way a municipality is going to get a return on that kind of money, return on their money.
And Tim, what I mean, looking at Jim's chart, we have as it stands now, we got an outstanding bill of $889,000 in 2022. Under this structure, we'd have a bill of 211. So I know we're not getting money for it, but that's what's creating the cash position that would potentially create opportunity. If there's not an opportunity, then that makes sense. If there's nothing we could do but put these in, 1% T-bills or something like that, then that doesn't make sense. But if there's an opportunity to use that cash for some sort of savings opportunity, again, from a perspective of cash is king, I think it's worth exploring. But that's the source, Tim, where I'm seeing that there potentially would be funds available.
Gotcha. Any other discussion on this before we move along? Nope. Discussion, next item on the agenda is possible discussion of proposed contract for SPD body camera contract. Jim, did you want to go over this, or have we?
This is going to be a topic for Thursday. Thursday's meeting. It's the police department issue, obviously. I just wanted to make sure everybody had this on the radar ahead of time. And I know that, because one of the things that was in the proposal or in the documentation that came to the board, or came to me and I forwarded to the board from the police department, was that the sooner they're able to act on this, the cheaper it will be. In the memo that was forwarded to us from the police department, they actually targeted a date of March 31st, that if we can sign a contract with Axon, their preferred provider, right off the bat, right there, we got a $40,000 savings. So if that's something that's going to happen, that's going to happen fast. I want you guys, even if it's only a couple days sooner, start thinking about that, where that would have to be approved, either additional appropriation in the current year to fund part of it, or at least get an approval in spirit so that we know we might be able to sign a contract subject to approval in the budget I think I sent a memo out. There's a lot of different variables in play that could be, there's a time constraint on the whole thing. So I just want people thinking about it sooner than later.
Jim, stop me if I'm wrong, but I think that we'll have a robust discussion on the 11th, and then my instinct is we'll probably need to get additional information from the chief but we'll probably need to schedule a special meeting sometime in March for this to cover this item, depending on whether we can just do a reappropriation or how we're going to deal with it. So, but I think the $40,000 in savings before the end of this month is probably something we ought to seriously take into consideration. Does that sound right to you, Jim?
It sounds exactly on point. And, what's more is, remember that this is in the budget anyways. So if you decide to do something this month and save $40,000, it's going to pull that same amount out of the SIP request.
Correct.
So it's a net gain of $40,000, but just by acting 3 months sooner, possibly.
Yeah,
Definitely makes sense.
but I think making sure we've done our due diligence, making sure we've gotten the review from the town attorney, and that probably makes sense. And I don't want to overly rush this one. So I want to make sure that we're set up that members feel comfortable about what we're entering into, that we have time to do a special meeting that shouldn't take a long time because we'll have our discussions pretty much happening on Thursday. And then we can just dot every I, cross every T, and do one after that so that we approve anything well in advance of when they would need us to authorize that. Does that sound okay, Jim?
It does, and I think I'll just add one more point. And actually, this is solves two things. One, at the last budget meeting or meeting before that, somebody asked me how much was left in those two WPCA SIP projects that we've been picking away at.
Yep.
The ones that were funded in 21 for $1 million. Well, there's $412,000 left in those two projects. So just as an aside, in case you're wondering where we might be able to pull some money from if we wanted to fund this, the police camera project earlier, that's one place to look.
And what I want to do too, Jim, and I'll be honest about it, I want to look at it and see if there's a way we could do a phased payments so that we can, do it over time or something, so we don't do everything. But let's all take a look at it before Thursday so we can have a good conversation with Chief on Thursday about it, and then be ready to act fairly quickly thereafter if there are more questions or things that we don't have answered perfectly, that we get it right going forward. Does that sound good to all the members?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'll assume silence from the online ones means agreement.
We agree.
Yep.
All right, possible discussion of Board of Finance follow-up questions for earlier departmental budget presentations.
Yeah, I apologize. I just sent that out today, this afternoon, so I don't know if everybody has this or not, but these are questions that arose during the prior budget presentation. So we could go through them, or if people have those in front of them, if they want to ask any specific questions about any one of them, I'll answer them as best I can. I don't think any other department heads are on the line at this moment, but how would you like me to proceed, Tim?
I'll be honest, I did not, it came in at an hour. I was not able to go over it. So I'll ask if any other members who were able to go over it have any questions or no?
Well, I am going to keep this as an item on all our budget meetings going forward, so we can do that at any time.
Perfect.
I haven't looked at it yet.
This time for Jim about the answers, and knowing that it will remain on the agenda items moving forward. Nope. Okay.
Yeah, just a quick thanks, Jim. You could, yeah. I haven't gone through everything, but I did take a quick flip through, and it looked like a lot of our questions were being rapidly addressed. So thanks. If you could express our thanks back to those at town hall who are getting these answers, much appreciated.
Well, you're welcome.
All right, budget calendar, possible discussion action regarding hearing meeting dates. I don't think we need anything on that at this time, do we, Jim?
Nope, no changes.
No snow coming. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Second from Dave. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Great, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Marvelously efficient, Mr. Chairman.